I think I'll just sit here and fall asleep. Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah, I'm here with Knitting Natter to help you learn to knit the easy way. And today I am finishing knits. And that doesn't mean that I am finishing off, doing the last rows and casting off or anything like that. What it means is that I have seams to sew up. I've got to the point where I've finished the knit, I just need to complete it so it can actually be used. I have a couple of seams to sew, I have some yarn ends to sew in as well. I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and encourage you to go, perhaps pause the video, just dive into the bag next to you and say, okay, I've got seams to sew off as well. I'll join Hannah and do this at the same time. I thought we could do a knit along in the form of a sew up along, finish along, seam along, all that sort of thing. Okay, so let's do that today. If you want to see finishing tutorials in greater detail, then I do have tutorials about that. There will be more coming out as well. I have a new invisible seam tutorial coming up. I have all sorts of things like tassels and pom-pom tips, etc. So do keep watching for them over the next weeks and months. And what I have today is basically me finishing and just sharing little tips that I have along the way. I will speed up some of it, I will do some of it in real time, and we'll have some music in the background as well. So yeah, let's do this. Let's finish some knits. What I have here is a bubble cowl. This is the moss stitch cowl, and you can see it's got lovely bubbles on it. This was knitted in around, so there are threads to sew up, just threads to weave into the finished knit on the inside. And I have a cowl, really super chunky lace cowl here, and a matching beret, and I need to finish those and sew the seams. So let's do this. Okay, so I already have my super chunky needle out, and I always leave this on the needle when it's got the last few stitches on it, and I will do a couple of lengths of the seam, give myself long enough. And then here, I'll just move that aside so we can see one thing at once. Here what I do is thread through the stitches while they're still on the needle. So I'll go from the opposite end and just go through one stitch at a time, or a few at a time. And that's just drawing those stitches at the top of the beret together. There we go. And with the super chunky yarn, because it's so thick and these top stitches are so large, I go through the top part quite a few times just to address the balance of that last stitch. Just feeling a bit saggy, but I do find it looks quite nice. It's like a flower with many petals at the top there. There we go. There we are. So that is nice and sturdy, and it's nice and settled, just like the rest of the top there. And I just need to go down the seam. Now, it's a lot easier, so much easier to sew a seam when it's super chunky yarn, because you can see the stitches more easily, and it does feel easier. So that's what I've got today. I've got to do the beret and the cowl at the same time. So I'm just going to start. And this is the invisible seam that I'm doing. Like I said, there will be a tutorial for this up in a few weeks' time. Now, one thing that might happen, because with a pattern like this, it's a bit uneven about whether you've got a hole somewhere or whether you are decreasing in one part of the row and not the other, is that you might reach the ribbing at a slightly different time. It's a tough call. Usually with super chunky yarn it's easier to tell, but when you're decreasing and indeed increasing with this beret, and you've got holes with the lace, it can be a bit tough on the edges to do the seam. But I would definitely always seam over knit circularly with super chunky needles. Super chunky needles can be a bit tough to handle on circular, so because they're so thick, and then the cable goes down to the very small point, it can actually cause a lot of friction with the stitches moving around, and they can change size as they go around the cable, so it is a lot easier to knit a large thing like this, a super chunky item, on a single pointed needle, and then sew it up with a seam. That's why both the cowl and the beret have seams rather than being knitted on circular needles. Also consider, if you are coming down here and you're thinking, oh no, I'm only a little bit off, it'll be fine, consider that you'll be wearing this possibly for years. So another 10 minutes spent seaming, just unpicking it and starting over, is nothing in comparison to how long you'll be wearing this. So just notice that if it is a long way off and it doesn't quite sit happily, then give yourself that chance to slightly perfect it, even if it doesn't end up being absolutely perfect. It can be a lot better than it might have been. There we are. I'm at the ribbing on both sides at the same time. That's good. The other thing to note when you are sewing up seams is that it's the nature of the stitch. The end of the row will be slightly tighter than the beginning of the row. So the stitches on the beginning of the row, i.e. the left side of the seam, will appear larger than those on the right. And I'm just looking at it now and I do need to go back. Possibly it went wrong there. Looks like I'm running out of stitches. Oh, I see what I did. I started sewing in the middle of a stitch rather than at the edge of a stitch on the right hand side here. Just there I made the mistake. Yeah, that's where it was. When you're sewing a seam, you need to sew in between two columns of stitches. And I was sewing right in the centre of a stitch rather than in between the stitches. Sounds a bit complicated, but you might be able to see it here. Here you need to sew in between the stitches, so there's a full stitch on the inside of the seam. What I started doing was sewing right in the centre of the stitch, and that won't pick up the stitch properly, that won't pick up the seam properly. That's why I went wrong. That's why I thought I was confused and I'd missed a stitch. There we are, that's better. That feels a lot easier as well. I'm not searching for the loop anymore. even if you get this kit now, you will get the full tutorial on how to sew an indivisible seam, so don't worry. And I did show you this method on DK yarn in the Sewing a Seam 3 methods with the lavender bag kits this summer. So you do have this as a tutorial, and this is definitely the preferable method for this kind of knit. It's very easy, she says, having just completely messed it up, to to see the stitches that you need to knit in, that you need to sew into, and this lets you be a lot more even and spot on as you reach the base of the beret like that. There you go. The ribbing is matched up along the centre there. Right, what I do now is pull it tight, just so that if there are any loose bits, they don't just sit there and start bulging. Just imagine if you had a loose seam and just kind of like the gape just got far too much, and halfway through the winter it just looked really ugly. So I pull it tight and then I just loosen it again so that it feels like the rest of the knit. Then you know that it's even. So even if there was a gape, it's not just in one part of the seam, it's even now. So I always do that when I finish the seam. If you've done a seam like this, if you've done the invisible seam, then it's an option. Some other methods won't let you do that. So this is another reason that I like this seaming method. It is really easy to just correct any mishaps along the way as well. So there you go, that is my seam. I just need to sew in these ends. Let me do that, and then we'll do the seam in the cowl. What are you seaming at the moment? Have you got any works in progress? If you've got knitting next to you, let me know in the comments what it is that's on your needles right now, because we can all cheer each other on. That's what I love about the YouTube comments. It doesn't just have to be me answering. It can be everyone else talking and chatting as well. And yes, you could definitely put a pom-pom on the top. And like I said, especially if you go for the cowl at the same time as the beret, if you knit that up at the same time, there is very likely enough to make a small pom-pom to go on the top. And you could definitely make a big one to go on the top with the leftover from the cowl. I really like that. Oh, these... Let me start sewing up and I will tell you where these patterns originated from. 2008, when I was first starting to create my own patterns. And I found this, it was a Rowan yarn actually. It was a really super chunky cotton. It was called denim, I think. It was called denim. It's obviously, it's discontinued years ago now, so I can't remember it exactly. But it was different shades of denim. It was it was a coconut brown and cream. I got a ton of cream and I started just knitting these up. Make it a kind of a classic. So I came up with this scarf pattern, and what I loved about it was that it kind of rolled in on itself. So it was really long. You could roll it around your neck so many times, but it rolled in. So it felt more like this than that. So it was a really long scarf, and I loved knitting it. And I can remember the first one I sold. It was to a friend who wanted one for her daughter. Her daughter absolutely loved it, and just basically said, I want it, and I want it in the cream. And I can remember the mum coming back to me and saying, you have no idea how often I had to wash it because all her foundation was coming off on the cream. So that was quite a funny thing. And I made the beret to match, so she had the pair. That's what I love about knitting pairs, because they go together, don't they? The sets, it's the kind of thing that you might purchase. We used to be a lot more, well, I tell you, my grandparents, my grandmom, I can remember my great aunt, my grandma's sister was like this as well. Your shoes had to match your handbag and your hat had to match your glove. Because the shoes and the handbag obviously had to match because they were both leather, and then the handbag matched the hat because they were both fabric. Made sense. But that's the ascot kind of thing, but it's also very British, and it's very much, this is what the Queen does, so we have to do it as well. But they were of that generation. But making a hat and scarf set just so much made sense to me. And then when I started creating the knitting courses in 2016, it just kind of occurred to me that I really wanted to do cable and lace courses. So as the lace course came about, and I'd done the beginner courses, and I thought, right, what's next? I did the lace course, and I wanted to create a cowl. The cowl seemed like a great idea because it was a smaller knit, you needed less yarn, it was just as warm as the scarf, and it meant that we were doing a seam with lace as well, so it was a great thing to practice on. So it was one of the first things that we knit in the lace course. And this is just a slightly different pattern. I've created it so it's that little bit bigger and that little bit longer. So if you ever want to get the lace course, the lace wizardry it is, then you could also get this kit to go with it, and you'll have absolute step-by-step guide on how you knit the pattern up. You just have to adjust it slightly because the knit in the course only uses one ball of yarn, but this uses two, so it's much bigger. It's got slightly larger size to it, and it's taller. So this seam is a lot easier and a lot faster because we haven't got to deal with the increasing and the decreasing that happens along the seam of the beret. You can see me just zooming along here. It feels so much easier to do. Oh, that feels so good. And this one, I made it so that it's really nice and long, so it can go over your collar or inside your coat and go down a bit into your shoulder. And it is that bit bigger and taller, so it really is going to keep you warm. Right, I'm going to put this beret on and hope, unlike the other week when I put the scarf on and took it off again, it doesn't completely mess up my hair. Oh dear. I do have a large head and I have curly hair, so if you think this looks a bit small on me, but you've got a smaller head and thinner hair, then it might look better on you. But oh, this is so cosy. It's not particularly warm in here today. I think I'll just sit here and fall asleep. That is so lovely. Fabulous! So that's the first Job done. Right. I haven't taken this off yet. There we are. So that's, yes, that is my forest green. It's up there. Forest green, big wool, beret and cowl. And you can get the bundle of these kits in the shop. If you get the kits in a bundle, you get two of them together, then you get 10% off. So that might be in the shop already, it might not. I can't remember when it's going up, so I apologise. Go and look in the description. If the waitlist link is still there, then the waitlist link will mean that you get an email as soon as it is available. If the link down there is ready for you to go and purchase, to go and have a further look and choose your yarn, then it's obviously available in the shop already. Right, I'm going to need a slightly smaller needle for this. And this is where the colours started. So I'm just going to be a bit more careful with these. As you can see, it's a bit of a gaping hole where they started because they got nothing to attach to. So I'm just going to weave them firstly into the seam, into the join, and then into the moss stitch. Here we are. And that is the moss stitch cowl as well. So this is a slightly lighter one than the super chunky, but this is an ideal transition cowl. It's also an ideal cowl, I feel, for wearing. This kind of lighter one is ideal for wearing if you are in and out of shops. Because if you are in a super chunky and you're really keeping yourself extremely warm, you're going to feel too hot when you're in a shop. And then you're going to feel like you've got to reacclimatise when you're outside. So this, if you're in a place like the UK, if you're in somewhere like the UK, this is going to really keep you nice and cosy if you do your coat up. And if you want to just wear it over a jumper, for example, just to keep your neck warm, it will feel more like a cowl neckline for a jumper. But it's not going to overheat you. But this is definitely going to keep you warmer than you would without it. So this is a really nice light knit, and it's something that you can really focus on as well. I love the kind of knit that takes a little bit longer sometimes. Obviously it's going to take longer because it's a thin yarn. But you feel like you really put a lot into it. You really put some thought and energy into it. I love that kind of knit sometimes. It just makes a difference. If you've been knitting a lot of quick knits with really chunky yarn and thick needles, and you kind of think, well, hang on a minute, that only took me 10 days. I don't really remember knitting it. This kind of thing, you remember knitting it. You go, oh, the kids going through the football, or you've been knitting it while they've been practicing for the school play, something like that. And that's the kind of thing I would love to knit over a period of time. And I remember knitting this. I will always remember knitting this during the Olympics, because I was knitting this when the Olympics started. Olympics 2020. This is Tokyo 2020 Cowl for me. But there you go. So yeah, think about that sometimes as well with your knits. It's like not how long it will take, but how much energy and kind of thought and emotion sometimes you put into a knit. It doesn't always have to be, oh, how quick will it be? It can be, how much thought and dedication can I give it? And then you'll be wearing it for the next 5 years. That will mean so much more sometimes. There you go. So I have finished some knits. I have finished my cowl, I finished my beret, and I finished this bubble moss stitch cowl as well. Just put my needle away and my scissors, and I'm very tempted so often to just chuck these into my needle case as well. They'll be useful, but they need to go in the bin. I can't keep hold of all of these. If I was someone who knitted really small items, then they would be useful. They kind of, they might be a great stuffing for a toy, or Christmas baubles or something. But yeah, no, they have to go in the bin. I can't keep everything. Right, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed finishing some knits as well. Like I said, give me a thumbs up, that'd be great. Thank you very much. And if you've liked this video and you've been knitting and finishing your own knits below, let me know in the comments what it is that you've been finishing. Well, I've been finishing knits too. I will see you again soon for another knitting video. I'm here every Tuesday, every week. See you then. Bye for now. Happy knitting.